Welcome back again, guys. So previous video had the unboxing of the number 8 Stanley Bailey. So I thought I'd just whack together a video showing the way that I refurbish the various components and bring it back to decent condition, bring it back to be a user. So we'll just kick off with, so basically what I do is I disassemble everything. I've got a whole heap of these plastic tubs that I then use to just lather it with WD-40. Any oil will do, but the purpose of that is just to loosen up the grime somewhat. So, you know, it's just makes it a bit easier to clean. Right. So I will be using a variety of tools. I'll be using the bench wheel, the wire wheel, the grinder, bench grinder, also cordless drill with a little brass brush on the end just to bring up the adjustment knobs because I don't want to hit that with the wire wheel too much. Rightio, we'll get into it. So now we've got the chip breaker. So there is quite a bit of surface rust on that. But once again, on the bench grinder or the wire wheel. There she is. Here's the blade. Quite a bit of surface rust. Let's see how she comes up. So that's got all the surface rust off. I'm not going to get the patina, not going to go too deep. It's come up quite nice. Give it a bit of lapping, flatten that surface. Very happy. Rightio, so I have touched everything up on the bench grinder, on the wire wheel. One thing I will mention is please ensure you're aware of the tools, of your own tools, the hazards, pitfalls, things to be aware of, the direction the blades are spinning. I'm fortunate my bench grinder came with a very soft wheel. So as far as damage to fingers, I'm quite lucky. I did, however, have a little whoopsie because I assumed the blade didn't have an edge, wasn't sharp. There is quite a sharp edge on that. So anyway, hazards of the trade. So the last thing to do before I reassemble, I will also do a little bit of lapping potentially. I just want to bring the adjustment wheel up to scratch, and for that I just use a cordless with a little wire brush. That's all I want. Not bringing it back to factory shiness, brand new. I do love the patina on these old tools. I do also engage a little bit of Scotch-Brite if I just want to bring it up just that little bit nicer. I hope I'm not giving anyone conniptions watching from doing anything wrong, but this is just the way I approach it. One other thing, so I typically start off, as I demonstrated, in a plastic tub just to give everything a good old soak. I then, after cleaning things up and wiping them down somewhat, I then utilize some cardboard on my workbench purely just to reduce the amount of oils and stuff, unnecessary liquids to go into my workbench. Find it also helps contain the project. I do also make use of a magnetised tray for all the smaller components to ensure I don't lose any bits. So I was lucky enough to not need to use the wire wheel on the plane sole. The gentleman I got the plane off had obviously given it a bit of a clean up, whether that was just for sale purposes or whether or not it needed it. Might just need a bit of a touch up there. So there we have it. All components are clean. I am not going to do anything to the knobs, to the totes. They are in good enough fashion to work as is. So the way I approach this is I like to grease all the screws and bolts and whatnot. Potentially unnecessary, but something I use. Any old grease will do, guys. I just have some marine grease. Oh, actually, no, this is wheel bearing grease. That'll do. A little bit on the ends. There it is. Sorry. Nothing is perfect. You don't need very much grease at all, guys. To be honest, I probably use a lot more than is necessary. Just not knowing when these bolts and screws and whatnot had been greased, just something I do. I think it is advisable though, you know, especially after cleaning up threads and whatnot, ensures the prevention of rust. Okay. So what I'm doing here, ensure the adjustment, the depth adjustment slots into that screw, and then I simply take one of my small rules to ensure the surface here is in line, in plane. Actually seats quite well. I don't think there's any lapping that needs to be done there. So once I get that where I want it, then pop these in. Might not be the best camera angle, I apologise. So I don't go over the top with the cleaning of the components. Now just going to give the blade a bit of a touch up. Slight chip in there. I'm going to just give it a quick hit just to proofing concept, so to speak. So, I probably should explain what I'm doing here, guys. Basically, there is a bevel already on there, so I place it down and twist it up until I can see that the leading edge touches the stone, and then pivot, give that a little rub, ensuring that I'm keeping the angle the same and I'm not pushing either way. Being diamond stones, it only needs a couple of hits, laying it flat just to get rid of the burr. Give it a bit of a rub. Oof, that's nice. When I rub the back also, I'll keep an eye to see what it's touching up on the back plane. And then basically just progress my way down. To the finer stones. Oof. Quick little strop. And everyone likes to do the old hair test, as you can see. Nothing wrong with that. Now, chip breaker. What they do say is you need to place it on the blade, and then if you have a look down that gap, when it's compressed, you don't want to see any light. So when I apply pressure, that actually looks pretty darn good. Just for my own peace of mind, I am going to give it a quick little hit. And when you do that, don't hold it flat. You want to get it on the edge and roll it over so that the leading edge is sharp. A little bit of grease. That is way too much. Yeah, you may not need to put grease on these. It's just something I've always done. Now, when you are putting the blade on the chip breaker, don't slap it and push it. You'll ruin the nice edge you've just put on. Put it perpendicular, slide it forward and around, and then you can slide it to where you would like the position. I typically go about 1 millimeter from the leading edge, depending on the use of the plane. And I've just realized there's a slight angle on this blade. Hopefully that will not become an issue, but we will see. Okay, assembled that. Once I've greased these two, I do like to wind them in, wind them out, just to ensure that that grease has got into the threads. Okay, I think I've actually jumped forward here because typically I like to attach the rear handle prior to other components to ensure I can get the screwdriver in nice and flush. Get that started. Then pop on the front screw. They're always a bit fiddly to get the screwdriver into these, I found. Not much room. So now that I've got the thread started on the back, I know that that's its home. Push it down, screw it in. Don't over tighten, guys. You just want it firm. Nice. Okay, that's him. A bit of grease on the depth adjuster. Would have been easier to have done this with it off, but that's life. Find that thread. Having a bit of trouble finding it. There we go. Lovely. That's in. You want bevel down, chip breaker up. Try to take a bit of care when you pop that in. You don't want to chip that lovely edge you've just put on it. Wind her back so she doesn't scratch. You want to adjust that screw so that when you pull the lever cap down, it bites and creates a firm bed for everything. Nice, nice. Front tote to go. Same deal, not too tight, just firm. That is beautiful. So I've set myself up just a little bit of 90 by 35 construction pine, not the longest piece, but for the purpose of this demonstration, it'll do. Now, these are the first shavings that this plane has taken in my possession. So with every plane, you want the blade retracted. Typically I'd run a little bit of oil underneath to make sure she glides, but because I have literally just finished refurbishing this, it is nice and smooth. So you start slowly advancing the blade until you feel it bite. So I'm slowly just rolling that blade forward. Till I feel it bite. Okay, back it off a touch, that was a bit aggressive. Okay. Now I believe it's just a little bit skewy, so we'll just adjust the blade over. Beautiful sound. So when you're planing, also ensure that you start with the front of the sole on the timber, but the blade behind, downward pressure. Not bad, not bad. Okay, getting there. I think I might have to re-hone that blade though. There we go. Slightly aggressive cut. Oof. Pretty close to a full length shaving. So I can tell by the start of the noise to the end of the noise, that is a full length shaving. Slight, what do I call it? It's not cutting full width completely, but that is a full length shaving. Not bad. Now, a lot of people might be having conniptions because I've been putting the plain blade down. In my experience, it makes no difference. That's not bad at all. Okay. Now that I've established that's cutting, just going to back that blade off. That is cutting absolutely beautifully. As I say, considering this is just construction pine, it's a mongrel of a product to work with. Now, to ensure that that's actually planed flat, because the number 8, that's its job. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a flat piece of timber. Flat, level, straight. So, there you go, guys. Stanley Bailey, number 8. Refurbishment. She is now an operational Death Star. As I say, I will need to rehone that blade because it has a slight camber on it, so that will need a touch up. So there we have it, guys. From the start of the video to the end, that is my process for refurbishing any hand tool. I also like to just dust them off with the brush just to ensure there's no shavings in there, because shavings attract moisture. Moisture creates rust. Love it. Operational Stanley Bailey number 8. Now, I will also mention, my brother commented when I did my unboxing, and I said, you know, tools like this that are over 100 years old. He said, "Oh, remember, this one is not. This is post World War II. I would hazard a guess with all the particulars of it. It is just prior to the plastic fantastic handles, and they are a variety that I avoid. I think that's where the quality sort of dipped once Stanley stopped using rosewood for their totes. Anyway, thank you very much, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for the next one. Thank you.